Eric's heart raced as he crouched beside Celine behind the large stones. They waited in tense silence, hearing the hunters below slowly making their way up the steep path. Eric gripped his makeshift weapon, a sharp piece of metal salvaged from the ruins, determined to protect Celine at all costs. Beside him, Celine's gaze hardened, eyes alert and focused. "They're coming," she whispered, her voice calm despite the danger. Moments later, the hunters emerged over the ridge, weapons drawn and eyes narrowed with ruthless intent. Eric and Celine sprang into action immediately. Eric swung his weapon, with strength born of desperation, clashing fiercely against the armored figure before him. The hunter stumbled backward, surprised by the human's determination. Celine moved with unnatural grace, her movements fluid yet powerful. She dodged enemy attacks effortlessly, striking back with precise blows that sent the hunters staggering. Her eyes glowed with a fierce light, and Eric saw for the first time clearly the power she truly held within her slender frame. Despite their efforts, more hunters continued arriving. Eric felt fatigue begin to settle deep into his muscles, but he refused to surrender. A sudden cry echoed nearby as one hunter fell from a powerful strike by Celine. Another charged at her from behind, and Eric shouted in alarm, "Watch out!" Celine turned just in time, narrowly avoiding the blow. But the attacker recovered quickly, striking again and this time catching Celine across her side. She staggered briefly, pain flashing in her eyes. Anger surged through Eric, giving him new strength. He leaped forward, driving his attacker backward with renewed force. Together, they continued fighting bravely, slowly pushing the hunters back. Finally, sensing the battle turning against them, the remaining attackers withdrew, retreating back. Down the rocky slope, Eric rushed immediately to Celine's side. Blood seeped slowly from her wound, dark against her pale skin. Eric's heart twisted painfully as he gently supported her. "Are you all right?" he asked, concern heavy in his voice. Celine forced a reassuring smile despite her obvious pain. "I'll survive. I've endured worse." "We need to find shelter and tend to your wound," Eric said firmly. They moved cautiously away from the ridge, descending toward a hidden valley Celine knew well. Eric held her carefully, supporting her as they walked. Eventually, they found a secluded cave, deep enough to shield them from danger and prying eyes. Eric gently guided Celine to sit, quickly pulling out emergency medical supplies from their pack. He cleaned and bandaged her wound carefully, his hands trembling slightly from the adrenaline that still coursed through him. Celine watched him quietly, her eyes softening. "You've risked so much for me," she murmured, gratitude in something deeper filling her voice. Eric paused, meeting her eyes seriously. "I couldn't let them hurt you. Not after everything we've been through." She hesitated, emotions clear in her eyes. "There's something you need to understand. Those hunters will never stop. Their leader, Commander Voss, has hunted me across worlds. For years. He won't stop until he's captured or destroyed me." "Why?" Eric asked softly. "Why chase you like this?" Celine sighed, her gaze distant. "Because I carry something he desires, the secret of immortality. It's in my blood. My kind survives by taking life energy from others, but we can also share our power, granting immortality, but at a terrible cost." Eric looked at her, suddenly understanding more clearly why she had been pursued so relentlessly. "That's why they fear you," he said gently, "and that's why they want you." Celine nodded slowly, sadness filling her eyes. "But I refuse to give him what he wants. I will never condemn anyone else to this existence, no matter how desperately he pursues me." Eric took her hand softly, determination firm in his voice. "Then we won't let him. We'll find a way to stop him, together." Celine looked up at Eric, moved by his words. Her expression softened further, a rare warmth in her deep eyes. "You are unlike any human I've ever known," she whispered. "Your strength, your kindness, they inspire me to keep fighting." Eric squeezed her hand gently, smiling warmly. Then let's keep fighting, Selene. Together we can face whatever comes. She leaned against him, the warmth of her closeness calming his anxious heart. As the silence of the night surrounded them, Eric felt a deep resolve forming within him. He would not let Selene face her tormentors alone anymore. Quietly, beneath the soft glow of moonlight filtering through cracks in the cave ceiling, Selene spoke softly, almost hesitantly. "There is a way to defeat Commander Voss," she began, cautiously, "but it involves risking everything." Eric turned toward her, listening intently. "Tell me. Whatever it takes, I'll do it." She met his gaze seriously, her voice steady but filled with concern. "To truly defeat him, I must confront him directly, and to survive that confrontation, I will need your strength." "It means you must willingly accept part of my curse, Eric. It means becoming like me." Eric's breath caught sharply, the gravity of her words sinking in deeply. He paused for a moment, carefully considering her words and their implications. Then, looking into her eyes, he answered without hesitation. "If that's what it takes to protect you, Selene, then I'll gladly accept whatever price it requires." Selene gazed at him, a mixture of relief and sadness flickering in her eyes. "I wish there was another way," she whispered softly. "Together we'll face this," Eric assured her gently. "I'm not afraid." Selene nodded slowly, comforted by his courage and determination. They sat together quietly, understanding the heavy choice they'd made. As darkness deepened outside their sanctuary, they knew the coming days would test their resolve and courage, yet neither felt afraid. Together, they would face the darkness, and together, they would find a way to win. Part 5. Eric and Selene took cover, their breathing rapid and tense as the bounty hunters closed in. Eric's mind raced, searching for a plan. Selene's calm yet alert presence steadied his nerves. He glanced at her, seeing determination mixed with sadness. She was ready to fight, but seemed deeply regretful of the situation. The first hunter appeared, weapon raised, and eyes scanning sharply. Eric waited, heart pounding, then leaped from cover, striking the hunter with surprising force. The hunter stumbled, dropping his weapon. Eric quickly grabbed it, feeling a surge of confidence. More hunters followed, filling the narrow valley with chaos. Selene moved swiftly and gracefully, almost a blur. She avoided their weapons effortlessly, striking back with precise movements. Eric fought beside her, adrenaline driving him onward. He aimed carefully, using the stolen weapon to disable the hunters without killing them as they fought. Eric noticed Selene's incredible strength and agility. She moved with the elegance of a dancer, but had the strength of a warrior. He understood now why the hunters feared her. But even amidst the fight, Selene looked sorrowful, clearly unhappy with violence. Finally, the last hunter fell to the ground, defeated. Eric breathed heavily, relief washing over him. Selene stood still, looking at the fallen hunters with regret. "I wish it didn't have to be this way," she whispered softly. Eric approached her gently, understanding her sadness. "You did what you had to do," he reassured her. "They didn't leave us any choice." She nodded slowly, accepting his words but still troubled. They quickly moved away, leaving the hunters safely disabled but alive. They knew staying was risky, and they needed to keep moving. Walking together, Eric finally felt brave enough to speak his mind. "Selene, I've been thinking about your offer," he began carefully. She looked at him, hope flickering in her eyes. "But seeing what happened to those humans in the murals makes me unsure." Selene's eyes dimmed slightly, but she nodded in understanding. "Immortality is both gift and curse," she admitted softly. "It is not something to choose lightly." "Tell me more," Eric urged gently. "Tell me the full truth." Selene sighed deeply. "Eternal life demands endless feeding on life energy. The hunger never ends, and the guilt can be unbearable. Watching everyone and everything around you disappear while you remain is a pain no one can truly imagine." Eric listened carefully, feeling the weight of her words. The thought of living forever was appealing, especially by her side. Yet, the Dreadful price she described filled him with doubt and fear. Is there no other way? Eric asked hopefully, desperately wishing for a solution. Celine paused thoughtfully, considering his words carefully. There is an ancient artifact, she finally said hesitantly. Hidden deep beneath Lunara, it's said to end the curse of immortality. I've searched for it before, but never succeeded. Eric's heart quickened with new hope. We should find it, he insisted eagerly. Together, we might succeed. Celine gazed into his eyes deeply, gratitude and hope slowly returning. Then let's try, she agreed softly, taking his hand firmly. But know this, the journey will be dangerous. I'm ready, Eric replied without hesitation. He felt deep in his heart that this was their best chance for her freedom, and perhaps their future together dot hand in hand. They set out, determined to face whatever awaited them beneath the ancient world of Lunara. Eric and Celine quickly gathered essential supplies from the ruins. They moved swiftly and silently, avoiding any unnecessary noise that might reveal their location. Eric's heart pounded hard in his chest. He had faced danger before, but this time felt different. This time, he wasn't alone. Outside, the enemy ship landed heavily on the barren surface of Lunara. Dust swirled into the air, forming thick clouds around it. Soon, figures emerged, clad in dark armor and carrying weapons. That glowed ominously. Eric watched closely, trying to stay hidden behind the stone walls. Celine touched his arm gently, signaling for him to follow her deeper into the ruins. She moved gracefully, her footsteps silent despite the uneven ground. Eric followed carefully, doing his best to match her quiet movements. They reached a hidden chamber beneath the main building, a safe place Celine had used many times before. They won't find us easily here, Celine whispered softly. But we can't stay hidden forever. Eric nodded, his mind racing. Do you know these? Hunters? Celine sighed quietly, sadness creeping into her voice. Yes, they chase me because of what I am. They see me as a threat, a monster who needs to be eliminated. Eric felt anger rise within him at her words. You're not a monster, he told her firmly, surprised at his own passion. You've been nothing but kind to me. Celine looked at him, gratitude evident in her deep red eyes. Thank you, she whispered, but these hunters will never understand. To them, I'm dangerous. Then we need a plan, Eric said, determination clear in his voice. Celine paused, thoughtful for a moment before speaking. There's another exit from these ruins, hidden in a cave system below. It leads out to the other side of the cliffs. If we can reach it, we'll have a better chance to escape. Let's do it, Eric agreed instantly, knowing they had no other choice. Move quickly again, descending even further into darkness. Eric's flashlight cast long shadows on the rough stone walls. The cave tunnels twisted and turned unpredictably, but Celine navigated them with confidence, her steps sure and steady. Behind them, voices echoed faintly, signaling the bounty hunters' approach. Eric and Celine quickened their pace, urgency pressing them forward. The tunnels grew narrower, forcing them to move single file, slowing their progress. Suddenly, a bright beam of light pierced the darkness behind them. The hunters had caught up, their voices growing louder and more aggressive. Eric turned quickly, heart pounding as he raised his flashlight like a weapon, ready to defend them. Keep moving, Celine urged, pushing Eric gently forward. We're almost there. They burst from the caves into a narrow valley, hidden between towering cliffs. Celine pointed toward a hidden path, barely visible among the rocks. Up there? She instructed urgently. They climbed rapidly, Eric's muscles straining with effort. Below them, the hunters emerged from the cave, shouting angrily when they saw their prey escaping. They fired weapons, the blast narrowly missing Eric and Celine. Scattering rocks and dust around them dotted the top, they found temporary cover behind large stones. Celine looked at Eric, concern filling her eyes. They won't stop until I'm dead? She warned softly. Eric took a deep breath, making a firm decision. Then we'll fight, he said, his voice steady despite the fear inside him. Celine gazed at him, her expression serious. Are you sure about this? I won't let them hurt you, Eric replied firmly. We face this together. Celine smiled faintly, touched by his bravery and loyalty. Together, they prepared for the hunter's attack, ready to face whatever danger lay ahead. Eric could not sleep that night. Celine's offer weighed heavily on his mind. He lay awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about all the things he would lose and gain by accepting her offer. The idea of living forever was both exciting and frightening. Unable to rest, Eric decided to explore more of the ancient ruins. He quietly got out of bed, careful not to disturb Celine, who seemed to have finally found a peaceful rest. He grabbed the flashlight and walked softly through the dark corridors. Guided by the dim glow of the symbols etched onto the walls, he stopped before a particularly detailed mural. Shining his flashlight across the faded images, they depicted the rise and fall of Celine's civilization. Eric's heart skipped a beat as he noticed several figures, clearly human, alongside the aliens. He moved closer, examining the figures carefully. They appeared to be suffering, their faces twisted with pain and sorrow. Eric felt a chill run down his spine as he realized the truth behind the images. These humans had been granted immortality, and it had driven them mad. His stomach tightened, and he felt dizzy. Could this be his fate if he chose to join Celine? You found the truth, came Celine's soft voice from behind him, making Eric jump. He turned around slowly, seeing her standing in the shadows. She looked deeply sad and ashamed. Why didn't you tell me? He asked quietly, hurt by her secrecy. Celine stepped closer, her eyes pleading for understanding. I was afraid you would run from me, she admitted softly. I was selfish. I did not want to lose you. Eric took a deep breath, trying to control his emotions. What happened to these humans? They could not handle eternity, she explained sorrowfully. Their minds and souls broke under the weight of endless life. They became shadows of themselves. Eric felt his heartache, both for the lost humans and for Celine, who had witnessed it all. Did you turn them yourself? Celine shook her head. Not all of them, she said quietly. But I did try with some, hoping for companionship. Every time it ended in tragedy. Eric stared at her, realizing the pain and guilt she carried with her. You still hoped I'd be different, he whispered. Yes, she admitted softly. Your strength, your kindness, your bravery, I believed you could handle it. But perhaps I was wrong. Eric felt torn, understanding her loneliness, yet fearing what might become of him. I don't know what to do. He confessed honestly. Celine reached out gently, taking his hand. I cannot force you, she said quietly. It must be your decision. But know this, I would rather be alone forever than see you suffer. Eric squeezed her hand lightly, comforted. By her sincerity, he knew he had much to consider, and he felt grateful for her honesty, even if it had come late. They returned to their rooms quietly, each lost in their own thoughts. In the morning, as Eric continued repairing his spaceship, an urgent beeping interrupted his work. He glanced at the screen, alarmed by the signal. A ship had entered the planet's atmosphere, and it was not friendly. Celine, Eric shouted urgently, running back to the ruins. We have company. Celine appeared quickly, her eyes wide with concern. Bounty hunters, she said grimly, looking at the ship descending in the distance. They found me again. Eric frowned deeply, realizing the danger they face. What do we do? Celine stood tall, determination filling her eyes. We survive, she declared firmly. Together. Eric nodded, feeling a surge of adrenaline and resolve. He knew the choices he had. Fear-making might soon be made for him. But for now, their priority was clear: stay alive. Eric woke early the next morning, feeling oddly refreshed after Celine's mysterious healing. Sunlight streamed softly into the room through cracks in the ancient walls. He stretched his limbs, still amazed that his injuries had vanished completely. Everything from the previous night felt like a strange dream, yet he knew it had all truly happened. He stood up and walked carefully out of the room, finding Celine standing quietly at the entrance of the ruins, staring thoughtfully into the valley. Distance. Her pale skin glowed gently in the morning sunlight, and her crimson eyes seemed distant and sad. Eric approached her slowly, unsure if he should disturb her. "Good morning," he said gently, trying to sound calm and friendly. Celine turned slowly, her eyes lighting up when she saw him. "Good morning, Eric," she replied softly, offering him a slight smile. "Did you rest well?" "Yes," Eric answered honestly. "Better than I expected." "Thanks to you." She nodded slowly, turning back to look out at the barren landscape. Eric moved closer to her, noticing the sorrow in her expression. "Are you all right?" he asked carefully. Celine sighed, shaking her head slightly. "Being immortal is a heavy burden," she admitted softly. "I've watched everything and everyone I care about disappear over thousands of years. It's lonely." Eric watched her closely, sensing the deep pain in her voice. "Tell me more about your people," he urged gently, curious, yet cautious. Celine turned to face him again, her eyes filled with a deep sadness. "We were once a great civilization," she began quietly. "We had technology and knowledge far beyond your imagination. But we grew greedy for eternal life. Our pursuit of immortality changed us, making us creatures who needed life energy to survive. Eventually, it consumed us completely." Eric listened carefully, his heart filled with sympathy for her pain. "I'm sorry," he whispered softly. Celine offered him a small, grateful smile. "It's been a long time since anyone showed me kindness," she admitted quietly. "I forgot how good it feels." Eric felt warmth in his chest, recognizing the sincerity in her words. He glanced at his crashed spaceship in the distance, feeling the weight of his responsibilities pressing on him. "I should start repairing my ship," he said quietly. "But I'd like your company, if you're willing." Celine's smile widened slightly. "Of course," she agreed, seeming genuinely happy for the first time. Together, they walked toward the damage ship, talking quietly as they went. Days passed quickly as Eric worked on the repairs, guided by Celine's knowledge of Lunara and her people's ancient technology. They spent hours talking, Eric fascinated by her stories and the incredible experiences she had lived through. Each day, he found himself more drawn to her mysterious nature and gentle kindness, despite knowing the dark truth of her existence. One evening, as the sun set, bathing the ruins in golden light, Celine sat beside Eric. Her expression was serious yet hopeful. "Eric," she began softly, looking deeply into his eyes, "I've come to care for you deeply. I never thought I'd feel this way again. But you're mortal, and eventually you will leave me." Eric swallowed hard, his heart pounding at her words. He knew where this was heading. "What are you suggesting?" he asked gently, though he feared her answer. "I can offer you immortality," Celine whispered, her eyes pleading. "We could share eternity together, never having to say goodbye." Eric felt his breath catch in his throat, torn between desire and dread. The thought of forever was both thrilling and terrifying. He hesitated, looking into her sincere, hopeful eyes, and knew the choice ahead would change everything. Eric Mason was sweating, his hands gripping the controls of his damaged spaceship. Warning lights flashed red, casting strange shadows on his face. He glanced at the planet growing larger through the cracked cockpit window. The emergency alarms blared loudly as the spaceship shook violently. Eric fought to keep control, but he knew he had no choice. He was going down. With a loud crash, the ship hit the planet's surface. Metal scraped against rock, sparks flying everywhere. Finally, everything stopped moving, and silence filled the air. Eric took deep breaths, trying to calm his racing heart. Pain shot through his shoulder as he struggled to unbuckle his safety belt. The crash had injured him, but he was lucky to be alive. Slowly, Eric stood up, holding his wounded arm carefully. He checked the ship's systems, finding most of them offline. The radio was dead, and the engines were useless. Eric sighed deeply. He was stranded on an unknown planet, far from any help. Determined not to give up, Eric took emergency supplies from the storage compartment. He stepped outside, breathing in cool, fresh air. The landscape was covered in darkness, with tall cliffs surrounding him. Strange plants grew in clusters, glowing softly. Eric took out a flashlight and started walking, hoping to find shelter or any sign of life. He walked carefully, noticing strange markings on the rocks around him. Curious, he moved closer to examine them. They looked like ancient symbols, carved deeply into the stone. Eric felt uneasy but also intrigued. He followed the trail of symbols, hoping they might lead him somewhere safe. After a long walk, Eric arrived at a set of stone ruins. They looked old, covered in vines and moss. Eric entered cautiously, shining his flashlight around. Inside, walls were covered in more mysterious symbols and drawings. Some showed alien beings, while others showed strange rituals. Suddenly, Eric heard a soft noise behind him. His heart raced as he spun around, flashlight trembling in his hand. Standing in the doorway was a woman unlike any he'd ever seen before. Her skin was pale and almost glowing. Her eyes were deep red, and her hair was as dark as midnight. Who are you? Eric stammered, stepping back. My name is Selene, she replied softly, her voice gentle and soothing. She moved slowly toward him, her movements graceful and calm. You are hurt, she observed, her eyes filled with concern. Eric hesitated, unsure whether he should trust her. But his pain was getting worse, and he realized he had few choices. My ship crashed, he admitted. I need help. Selene nodded, reaching out her hand. I can help you, she said simply. Her voice was comforting, easing his fears. Eric took her hand, surprised by how cool and smooth her skin felt. She guided him deeper into the ruins, into a room dimly lit by glowing crystals. Sit here, Selene instructed, pointing to an ancient stone bench. Eric obeyed, wincing as he sat down. Selene knelt beside him, examining his injury closely. Without saying another word, she gently placed her hand over his wounded shoulder. Eric gasped as a strange sensation filled him, warm and soothing. The pain slowly faded away. When Selene removed her hand, Eric stared in amazement. The wound was completely healed. How did you do that? He asked, unable to hide his astonishment. Selene smiled softly. I have abilities your kind would find difficult to understand, she replied quietly. Eric took a deep breath, still staring at his healed shoulder. He felt stronger, but questions filled his mind. What is this place? And who are you really? He asked cautiously. Selene's smile faded slightly, sadness appearing in her eyes. This planet is called Lunara, she began softly. My people once thrived here, but we sought immortality and paid a terrible price. We became creatures that feed on the life force of others to survive. I have lived alone for a very long time. Eric felt a chill run down his spine. You're saying you're a vampire? He asked, his voice trembling slightly. Selene looked away, sadness deepening. It is not exactly like your human legends, she explained. But yes, my existence requires the energy of other beings. I try not to harm, but survival demands sacrifice. Eric felt confused and nervous, yet strangely drawn to her. He could see genuine sorrow and loneliness in her eyes. He took a deep breath, gathering his courage. Why did you help me? He asked softly. Selene turned her gaze back to him, her expression gentle and kind. I sensed your bravery and kindness, she replied. It has been centuries since I encountered someone with a heart as strong as yours. Eric felt warmth spread through his chest at her words. Yet, deep inside, he also felt wary. The thought of spending eternity feeding on others filled him with dread. Still, he could not ignore the connection he felt with Selene. You can stay here until you repair your ship, Selene offered. I will ensure your safety. Eric nodded slowly. understanding the complexity of his situation. "Thank you," he replied simply, knowing there was much he still had to learn about Lunara, about Selenin, and especially about himself.